that is partly responsible for this. So that's why we, in the United States in particular, have to stand up. Okay, now we're going to have a couple words from Julian.
Thanks, everybody. So, I think first it's worth talking a little bit about some of the claims that the Israeli forces have been making about what just happened off the coast of Gaza. Because we've seen this repeated over and over again in the U.S. press, repeated directly from Israeli officials, that what Israel did was an act of self-defense. And we know that that's a pack of lies. What happened was 90 miles into international waters. What happened was not even under Israeli jurisdiction. It was the 4th largest military in the world raiding an unarmed ship full of humanitarian supplies. And so when we see that, and we also have to talk about why that ship was there in the first place. Because we have to remind ourselves that that ship was there to break a siege, to break an inhuman siege by Israel that was preventing humanitarian and medical supplies from getting into the country, and has been doing so for months as a form of collective punishment against the people of Gaza for having the nerve to elect the government they wanted in 2005. The U.S. said they wanted democracy in the Middle East, and when the Palestinians had the nerve to choose Hamas, what we saw was a brutal and inhuman siege that the U.S. has been at best silent about and at worst complicit in. So we have to not only decry what happened in Gaza, but we have to stand with the international activists that are, because the so-called international community has refused to do anything about the situation of Gaza. We've seen that it's up to us, up to the international movement against occupation to take this up. And we're part of that movement right here in Urbana. We're part of that movement off the shores of Gaza. Thanks, everyone.
And we have a couple more words from Carl.
Just speak into it. It works that way. No, that's great. There are 2 points that I wanted to make about this action that so appalls all of us. The actions of a lunatic state, as Norman Finkelstein has recently described it. That's certainly true. That's why we're here today. These actions are atrocious. But there are 2 aspects of it that perhaps have not been mentioned enough. The first is that the actions taken by the Israeli forces could be done, were possible, only because the United States stood behind it. It could not have happened. A lunatic state, even the lunatic state of Israel, could not have done any of this without the backing of the United States of America. The United States' position is that it is somehow removed, even-handed over the combatants. In the United Nations yesterday, the United States promoted a resolution that suggested that the peace demonstrators, by being provocative, were equally responsible for what had happened. This is outrageous. This is incredible. And yet the American position has been this hands-off approach. Just the opposite is the case. Just the opposite is the case. It could not happen without the United States support. The second point to be made is the United States support is not because of some sentimental or even idealistic support. The United States support for Israel is part of the general war that the United States is conducting throughout the Middle East. What the Pentagon calls the Long War. From Palestine to Pakistan, from Central Asia to the Horn of Africa, the U.S. is following a policy that it has followed literally for generations to make sure that the United States controls the world's greatest deposit of hydrocarbons. That's what it's about. It's pointed out that if the primary product of Iraq was asparagus, we would not have the American army there. What the United States is doing is carrying on a consistent policy, consistent, I might say, in the last two administrations, as in the administrations before it. The present administration is carrying on particularly brutally, but it is the same policy. And the policy says the United States shall control this region, and we shall control this region, by the way, with the use of an effective tool, a sort of stationary aircraft carrier in the state of Israel. And for that reason, the U.S. backs Israel, not because of any other connection, but because it's part of the U.S. geopolitical plan for the region, the plan that we've been following now for many a year. It's not going to change. The result for us is that we should direct our protests not to Tel Aviv. The thugs and killers in the Israeli government are there. The thugs and killers in the Israeli military are there. But we should not be speaking to them particularly. We should be speaking to our own representatives, our own government here, who are the essential backing for anything that the state of Israel does. So call your own representatives, write your own government, tell them to stop it.